Good afternoon. Can you need a last second to grab a drink or whatever while I talk real quick? I'm Laura Lartz from RCA. Welcome. Thank you for coming. I know it's a dreary day and this is a beautiful spot to be instead. So it's nice to see everybody here. Please sign in. It helps us keep track of how many people come, and if you could indicate on the side how you heard about this event, just helps us know where we need to advertise more, what we need to do. If you're interested in joining RCA, it's very reasonable rates, and it helps support these reflection talks and a lot of other things that are going on. It's a handout there of other things, other ways you can help out, and I'll just leave you to that. Trying to think if there's anything else. I wasn't going to do this morning. I thought somebody else was going to be here to introduce, so sorry, but my brain is like trying to process real fast. All right, I think that's everything I need to say. So this is Pat Carney. She is a naturalist and educator. We've actually had you here before, I think, over the years. And today's topic is a fun one, porcupines. I think everybody thinks they're kind of cute. Maybe a little prickly, but a little kind of cute. So I'm going to let her introduce herself more, but she's done a lot with educating students, children in the area over the years. I know teachers who've worked with her on camping programs and the like. So she's very well known and
big kids too.
Yeah, big kids too.
Big kids.
And very respected. And I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you very much. Well, let's turn the lights off and just kind of see where we're at here.
All of them?
Yeah, all of them. Yeah, that'll, I think that'll. And oh, yeah. Okay. And if we need to, we'll just do the screen. So thank you very much for inviting me here today. The reflections programs are really nice, and I know I've enjoyed a few over the years myself. So I was looking forward to doing this. Let me just 1 second here. So I was talking to a few of you, and I know some of you have seen a porcupine. But how many of you have seen a porcupine in the wild? Just raise your hand. Oh, okay. All right, quite a few people. So, as I start, I have one small disclaimer. I'm not a wildlife biologist. I've been a environmental interpreter and naturalist for about almost 35 years. A naturalist is just someone who, like many of you, wanders around in the woods and the fields, and the ponds and the brooks and the wetlands, and they kind of wonder about things. They see things and they hear things and they smell things and they touch things and they wonder, well, what is that? And why is it there? And what's it doing? So, but naturalists, if you wander long enough for enough years, you learn a little bit about a lot of things, but you don't know everything, unless you were the eminent John Weeks, who somebody told me had already forgotten when I met him, more than anybody else would ever know. So many people have seen a porcupine, and a number of you here have seen a porcupine in the wild. But how often do we see them? And how much do we know about their life history? So if we had a little bit better day today, I would have asked you, how many of you have seen a squirrel today? Okay, all right, so they were out and about. Okay. So So squirrels are very active during the day. And they're happy to raid our bird feeders. They're fine, they happy to live in our yards and neighborhoods and parks. Sometimes they're even happy to share our homes with us. But unlike squirrels, porcupines are nocturnal and they're not as familiar with their habits. So let's start by exploring a little bit about porcupines and learn about some of their life history and some of the behaviors. We'll become acquainted with some of the behaviors of this interesting mammal. So I'm going to start with a little game of Where's Waldo the Porcupine? And where do we find porcupines? Well, we find porcupines all over the world. And they're divided up into two groups. There's Old World porcupines and New World porcupines. So there's about 16 species of New World and I think 11 species of Old World porcupine. So the porcupine that we're going to be talking about today and that most of us are familiar with is Ornithozon dorsatum. So it's just a Greek derivative that means irritable back. And our porcupine has made it a little bit easier. We don't have to get on a plane to go find it. So our porcupine is the only, it's a New World porcupine, but it's the only porcupine that is found in North America. So they're found throughout Canada, up into Alaska, up to about the tree line, and across northern United States and the western states, down into northern Mexico. So if we were to go on out and say, let's find a porcupine. Some of you were asking me, like, you haven't seen them on the west side of town, or you've seen, you know, maybe porcupines around here, but like on the south side, where a number of them were hit. But normally, if we go to look for a porcupine, we have to know where we're going to find them. So, and animals, any living thing has certain requirements for life. And they live in an area that's going to provide them with food, water, shelter from predators and the weather, and enough space for their population. So when we go to look for porcupines, we're going to concentrate in our area because across North America it depends upon geographic location. But for the most part, up in the Northeast, we're finding porcupines in the woods, in the woodlands and the forests. So they're, we find them in conifer forests, depending upon the season, near water courses and ponds, deciduous woodlands, let's see, and mixed woodlands, sometimes old fields, abandoned pastures and farms. So those are the areas that we would go to look. So what makes a porcupine a porcupine? Well, every living thing is kind of classified taxonomically according to its features. And porcupines are in the order, the rodent order. And they're second only to beavers in size in North America. So a rodent, if you're a rodent, you have ever-growing incisors. You have a toothless space because you have no canine teeth, and you have molars. So the incisors there have an orange facing to them. And the back part of the teeth are soft dentine. So when a porcupine is gnawing, then it's keeping that sharp chisel edge to it. That space, that diastema, toothless space, they can fold their lips behind their incisors there, and then that way increases efficiency for when they're chewing, but also keeps like whatever stuff that they don't want to have in their mouth, like chips and stuff, out of their mouth. The molars are, once they get their permanent molars at about 2 years of age, they don't regrow them. So as they wear down, that might set a limit on life expectancy. So let's see. What I'd like you to do right now is, I only have one of these, and I apologize for that, but I want you to pick up an imaginary grape right now and pop it in your mouth and begin to chew that grape. Well, this is a quiet porcupine group. I don't hear much chewing. Very, very polite.
What is it? What do we pick up?
A grape?
Oh, a grape.
Yeah, but imaginary grape, and chew it. So now, when we're chewing, we tend to chew sideways. And I got to thinking about this the other day, like, do some of us chew right to left or left to right? However, if you're a porcupine, you have specialized muscles, and you chew front to back. Works for porcupines. So, okay. If somebody had never seen a porcupine and they asked you to describe it, when we think of any living thing, it's kind of, its body is designed for its way of life. And porcupines are semi-arboreal, meaning that they spend a lot of time in trees and foraging and resting. Again, that kind of depends upon geographic location and maybe predator density. But in our area, most of our porcupines are semi-arboreal. So when we go to describe a porcupine, I'm going to say, okay, it has a relatively compact body. It's averages anywhere from 25 to 40 inches in length. They have, they're about 10 to 20 pounds. They have this small head and small eyes and short round ears. And they have this kind of thick muscular tail and short limbs. They have 5 different kinds of hairs. So what do we think when we think about porcupines? What's the first thing we think about? Quills, yes. How many people have had a dog that have visited a porcupine? See, notice I didn't say that was attacked by a porcupine. Okay, so quills are a type of a guard hair, and it's they're modified for defense. They have these long, thin, barbless hairs that are a modified or a guard hair. And they kind of resemble like a barbless, long, thin quill. Used to help with like tactile information about their immediate environment. And also I'm not positive about this, but I would think that it would, the quills and the guard hairs would provide some measure of insulation. They have whiskers like Gracie. Again, providing information about that tactile environment, things like cat's whiskers. They have, let's see, a thick, woolly undercoat of fur, and that's their primary insulation layer. And underneath their tail, they don't have quills, but they have these short, black, bristle-like hairs. So they spend a lot of times climbing up and down in trees and about. So they have very strong thighs for gripping the branches of trees and the trunks and for climbing. Also strong forearms. The bristles on the back of its tail are going to help them to keep them from sliding backwards. It provides some friction too, so helps keep them when they're in the trees. They can use them as a prop as well as defense. But and their feet, their front feet have 4 toes, and their hind feet have 5. So they have these very long curved claws, which are going to help them to snag branches and also for self-grooming. So the bottoms, the soles of their hands, soles of their feet and the palms of their hand don't have any quills, and they have this thick, pebbly texture to them. Again, increasing friction and kind of keeps them more stabilized when they're climbing. So here's where you get to have your mint. So once you've been very patient. So take your hand just like this, put the mint on top of your hand. So you're going to have to imagine, or if you want, you can take the paper off of that. So if you wanted to eat that mint, if you just moved your hand to your mouth, what would happen? It would fall, right? Likely. So we use our digits, our fingers, to manipulate our food. They can fold over, and that way we can, move our food. Think about eating in your corn. So porcupines, their claws can fold right over their palms. And so that way they can manipulate their food and also reach up and grasp at trees. Let's see. Go back one here. So how many of you, well, think back to your tree climbing days. And for some of you, and maybe a lot of you, you still might be actively climbing trees today. However, imagine climbing a tree that with very rough bark and climb up that tree and around without any clothes on. Sounds a little uncomfortable, right? So if you're a porcupine that's spending a lot of time in trees, well, you want to hope that, it's a more comfortable experience for you too. So porcupines have no quills like on their muzzle. They have no quills like on their chest and bellies. And the inner surface of their limbs have no quills. So this increases efficiency when they're climbing. And to my way of thinking, it's got to be a lot more comfortable. Also their reproductive and their sexual organs are enclosed in their body. So again, much easier to find. So how many of you have seen a rabbit and running around? Okay, they're pretty fast, right? So, porcupines are not quite so speedy. And so animals like rabbits and fox and deer, they're digitigrades. They can walk on their toes and they tend to be kind of fast. Porcupines walk on the soles of their feet. And so they're called plantigrades.
Called what?
Plantigrades. So some people might say, hey, they have kind of a waddling walk. I tend to refer to it as a ambling walk. So it's a stable walk, but not particularly speedy. However, those of you that have seen porcupines in the wild, or if you haven't had that experience yet, the next time you see one on the ground, try catching it and seeing how fast you have to run to catch that porcupine. So before it goes up a tree. Okay. So, okay. So like most animals, unless they're, need to fight to, to save their lives or to get food. Porcupines don't want to be aggressive and get involved in aggressive situations if they don't have to. So they utilize 3 different warning systems or strategies before they have to bring out the big guns. And those are color contrast. They have sound and they have odor. Think about animals like maybe lady beetles, monarch butterflies, some of the caterpillars with their bright stripes and colors. Those are warnings for other animals that you don't want to eat me because I don't taste very good. So, well, porcupines are nocturnal, so bright colors aren't going to help them. So they utilize a black and white contrast pattern. And so extending up along the middle of their tail and then expanding along their back is this black stripe. And then it's fringed by these white quills that have like a fluorescent molecular pigment to them. Kind of acts as a brightener and heightens that contrast. How many of you have seen a skunk like at dusk or at night? Yeah, okay. And they stand out. So with porcupines, it's kind of similar, you're going to notice them a little quicker because of that black and white contrast. If you're walking around at night and it's dark, and maybe you're close to a porcupine, but you don't know it, you might hear this really eerie sound. And it coming maybe from a tree up above you, or maybe a sheltered spot on the ground. So they use a tooth clacking sound. And so it starts like with a shivering of their body, and then their incisors are gonna vibrate against each other, and then their molars. They can do this for about 30 seconds, and but they can repeat this over and over again if it's necessary. So especially in the dark, or maybe coming from a hole in the ground, that's a weird sound. So let's see if we have any porcupines here. Let's see how good you guys are, okay? So when I put up my hand, start to vibrate your incisors, and then I'll put up my other hand, vibrate your molars too, okay? You ready? You guys are too quiet. I might make you do it again. Okay, so that's the tooth clucking sound that they use. So the third warning strategy is odor. And Dr. Aldous Raz, who researched porcupines and the Catskills, has said that nothing in the forest, no other animal in the forest, smells like an angry porcupine. And you don't want to be in a confined area with them. So they have this naked patch of skin above their tail, above the base of their tail. And there are some specialized quills, that's called a rosette. And there's specialized quills in this area. And they're attached to these sebaceous glands. So when they're erected, they squeeze those glands, and this odorant is expressed up those quills and onto the skin, and that kind of disseminated. All my years of wandering about, looking at porcupines and stumbling across them, and I have never had the pleasure of smelling an angry porcupine. And I don't know if it's just that I haven't stressed them out enough or what, but it is something that, even though I don't want to stress them out, I'm looking forward to. How to describe this odor? Somebody said it's like very, very ripe cheese. Anybody here like really, really ripe cheese? Okay, there we go. So you might not mind it so much. Or how about randy goat? Not quite such a pleasant odor. So those are the three strategies that it's going to use. If a potential predator doesn't, is deterred by this and continues to like harass the porcupine, they have to bring out their ultimate weapons. And that's their quills. That's right, their quills. Okay, so porcupines have on average 30,000 quills. And they don't replace them. So they're obviously going to use them kind of judiciously. So the quills have white shafts with black tips, and they have like a little bit of like a greasy residue on them that is thought to have antibiotic properties. Probably very helpful for if they self-impale or they do get in a fight with another porcupine. So that black tip has all of these microscopic barbs on it, and they're backward facing, so that when that quill enters a body, it can easily continue between like body heat and maybe muscular contractions that can easily propel forward through the body. Has anybody here ever gotten stuck with a fish hook with a barb on? Yeah, okay. Oh, Eric, raise your hand. So the quills very easily go forward, but to try to extract one, you're going against those barbs. And do you have a question?
Yeah, I've heard the same thing with bees and like stays in the skin so well. And like hair nets are entire guts and stuff.
Okay, yeah, that's, yeah, because they can travel all the way through your body and hopefully not hit an important organ. But, because of that greasy residue, they tend not to like, leave a lot of inflammation, so. So porcupines, are not hollow, or quills are not, porcupines are not, quills are not hollow. I know some people have thought that, and, so they're actually filled with, like this spongy matrix. And that's gonna give them, rigidity, but also keep those quills lightweight. Do porcupines throw their quills? No, they don't. No, forget what Chag says about using them for a friendly game of darts. No, they don't throw their quills. That idea might have come from, if a porcupine, especially like if they're thrashing their tail around and it hits a hard surface, it's like a rock, it might fly through the air. And, but the quills themselves are, dislodged from the porcupine by like an equal and opposite force, where, the quill entering the body then produces another force that breaks the connective tissues. But no, they don't throw their quills. It's been a very long, hard winter. I called it unrelenting. A lot of snow, freezing temperatures, cold winds and gusts. So how many of you really like to be outside a lot, even in the winter time? Okay, a lot of you do. However, I bet probably as much as we like being outside in the winter time, we probably spend more time outside in the spring and the summer and early fall. And so porcupines don't hibernate, so they're facing the same conditions that we are. So while we're kind of maybe hunkered down in our homes, and maybe we venture out to forage at maybe a local restaurant or the grocery store, or maybe to get together with some friends. Porcupines face the same realities, except for they don't venture out to go visit friends. Oh, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself there. So their quills, this might be the last sight that you ever want to see if you get too close to a porcupine, that you didn't pay attention to any of its other warnings. So their quills can look like a phalanx of spears. We've had a couple dogs over the years, and maybe you have too, that maybe this was the last thing that they saw of the porcupine. It's not what you want to see. So porcupines utilize dens, especially in the wintertime. And the dens could be anything from maybe a tree limb, maybe a tree that fell over, exposed root system. They use natural cavities. And a lot of times they're using cavities like at the base of trees. This den is located up a little bit higher in this big old hemlock. And you can see, the porcupine, this is about head height. So here's a lot of scat here. And so how do you know if the porcupine is still in there? Any ideas? So, because you might see some quills and you see a lot of scat, but you're looking for fresh scat. And then, you know, maybe that sound to let you know that they're in there. This was just from actually a few days ago at a den, and so here's the fresh scat right here. They also will utilize, so they'll also utilize dens during the spring and summer and early fall to escape biting insects. Pretty soon we're going to be facing the black flies and then the deer flies, heavy rain. But those dens, for the most part, are like temporary shelters, and they might be like just a hollow at the base of a tree. They also use them to like escape potential predators. I was the potential predator for this porcupine, so we thought maybe it could just hide in the hollow of that tree.
What is their diet?
What's that?
What is their diet?
Oh, we're getting to that. We're very close to that. Everything has to eat. So, sometimes though, instead of utilizing a den, they'll use a den alternative. And this porcupine in 2013, I watched this porcupine for 7 weeks in this big hemlock tree. And that porcupine never left that tree. And the reason that I know that, because I didn't spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is we had a lot of snowpack that year, and there were no tracks going back and forth, up and down, you know, or back and forth and leaving that tree. So you might think, okay, if you're a porcupine and you've got a den, maybe you'll be a little bit warmer, a little bit. Maybe you'll have a little bit more protection from predators, but every day, every night around dusk, you have to wake up, you leave your den, you have to travel to your feeding tree, climb up your tree, forage through the night, and then with the approach of dawn, you descend from that tree and you have to travel back over to your den, no matter what the snowpack is like. So while you're doing that, you're utilizing a lot of energy back and forth and up and down, and you're exposing, you have more exposure to potential predators. If you're a porcupine, like this one right here, that just utilized the hemlock tree, you conserved a lot more energy. Aside from maybe tree climbing predators, you're not exposed to as many predators. So you might think, well, okay, but why wouldn't it freeze to death? Well, remember they have that thick woolly fur underneath their guard hairs and their quills. So that's keeping them warm. Conifer trees tend to have a lot of dense foliage. So that's kind of acting as a heat shield. And they're also getting some secondary radiant heat from the foliage and the trunk that, you know, the tree absorbed during the day. So there's advantages and disadvantages to every choice that you make. Okay, what do porcupines eat? Well, some of you might be sitting here going, oh, maybe I'll get a pizza on the way home tonight and have it for dinner. So, well, porcupines are strict herbivores. So they have no money, they're not getting a pizza. So in the winter time, their diet is very, very poor. It almost ranges from subsistence to starvation diet. Very, very low levels of crude protein. They let's see. So their diet is mostly a woody diet. They're foraging on the cambium, intercambium of trees such as like some of the evergreens and beech and sugar maple and maybe birch. But especially like sapling size and up in the canopy because it's easier to, the nutrition is better and it's easier to remove that bark. They're also feeding on evergreen foliage because the deciduous leaves are not there. So they're going to be feeding on hemlock, pines, cedar, and spruce.
Is that mostly bark?
What's that?
What do they actually eat of these plants?
The bark, but the inner bark, not the outer bark. So they're eating that inner bark, and they're not like taking huge chunks out. They're just basically using those incisors and scraping thin layers of that inner cambium,
Okay.
and then grinding it up with their molars. So because this is a diet so poor in the wintertime, in the wintertime, so protein levels are low, and they can lose almost 18% of their body weight over the winter. They also tend to forage on just 2 to maybe 3 different species of trees, and maybe just a couple individual trees. Any herbivore can only subsist on plants for resources if they can overcome the tree's defenses. Trees can't run away, but they have chemical and physical defenses. So there's a hypothesis called the specific microflora hypothesis. And it states that porcupines, individual porcupines have to be able to adapt to specific trees and specific species. So they're not just going to randomly be in the woods and just eating a lot of different types, because their microbiome, all those little bacteria, have to be adapted to the particular toxins that are found in different species of trees. So how do they adapt? Well, if when they're foraging at first, and they're learning about a tree or the food and what parts of the trees or plants to eat, that's called discrimination. They're figuring out how to maximize that energy and that nutrition and energy, but also how to detoxify it by creating bacteria and microflora that will detoxify those plants. With the coming of spring, life gets a little bit better for porcupines. And just like us, some of us might be looking forward to fresh spring vegetables, maybe asparagus. Because the store ones are good, but not as good as fresh out of the garden. So porcupines, their diet in the spring is very rich and it's very high in food protein. So that's kind of like a seasonal pattern too to their diet. So they're going to be foraging on sugar maple bud, never red maple. The toxins are too high. Catkins, emergent and young beech leaves. And then as beech tends to get a little harder as it gets a little older, that'll drop out and they'll be foraging on ash. And also raspberry foliage. They use,
Raspberry,
what's that?
raspberry.
Yeah, raspberries. Yeah, you like those too. So,
You have a couple blackberry.
so this diet is going to lead to 3 important physiological developments. The first is that porcupines are going to gain weight at the fastest rate of their yearly cycle. And this is especially important if it's a pregnant female and for her developing fetus. For the most part, that fetus hasn't been growing much, and then it's going to grow really fast. Around mid-April, this diet will induce a molting of their underfur over the course of about a week. And so sometimes at a tree that a porcupine's been resting in or feeding in, you're going to find like a mass of like fur down at the bottom of that tree. They still have their quills and their guard hairs and their whiskers and their tail bristles, but no undercoat. And they'll start to regrow that again in about early fall. The other thing that this diet is going to that this diet will lead to is a loss of sodium. And so the sodium balance, and it's very high in potassium. So the potassium levels and the sodium levels are going to come out of balance. And so they have to, that can lead to could even lead to death if it's really, strongly out of balance. So porcupines try to get rid of potassium by urinating, but potassium and sodium are very, very closely related chemically. So sodium gets excreted out of there too. So now they're going to have to actively look for salt sources. And it can be man-made and natural. A lot of you have probably heard of stories about, porcupines chewing on the undercarriage of cars and tires, because what do we use on the roads in the wintertime to de-ice them? We use sodium salt. That's right. A lot of times you'll find porcupines hit alongside the road, especially in the spring, because they're seeking the road salt that's washed out. Up north, you might see some people that have their cars like in little fenced-in enclosures. This car is up in the Adirondacks, but you can see like the chew marks on the tires. This is Pudge. Pudge has been in the woods at least about 60 years or more that we know of. So they also will seek out natural sources. And so this is the time of year that maybe along ponds and water courses, you might find porcupines They can swim, but it's not their first go-to. But they, because some of the aquatic plants are high in sodium, they're going to, especially like yellow pond, lily leaves, and I think liverworts and arrowheads. So they're foraging and they're eating those leaves to replace lost sodium. Also, maybe in the woods too, if they come across like bones, we usually tend to think of like mice chewing on like antler sheds and bones, but porcupines will also utilize them if they come across this. With the turning of the season, their diet's going to change, and they'll concentrate almost exclusively in summer or on foliage on leaves. And so aspen leaves and no woody diet at all. And they're also discriminating between parts of the plant, which has the highest nutrition and the least amount of toxins. So they don't feed on the twigs, they don't feed on the petioles. They just feed on the leaf blade itself, or if it's a evergreen on like the twigs.
Do they ever rummage through like the garbages?
Oh, wow, what a good question. I'm trying to think what there might be in the garbage for them to maybe a salt block in the spring. I never had that question before. But no, overall, I don't think they do. Besides, the bears were too busy, right?
Yeah.
They've got prime real estate, yeah. Or at least they used to before when they still had dumps up in the Adirondacks. Okay, so they're feeding on aspen. And let's see, both big trees and quaking. Remember I said they were strict herbivores? Well, who else feeds on leaves, like caterpillars? So if a leaf that they're foraging on has some caterpillars, well, that's just another source of sodium for them. I don't think they spit them out. They feed on basswood or linden. And let's see, some of the other trees too, like they might feed on birch. They do feed on some ground vegetation, like some herbaceous vegetation. But mostly, and I think that's a lot because of the predator density, they're feeding up in the trees. As the summer progresses, and we get towards the end and the mass crops develop, they're feeding on mass like beech nuts and oaks, possibly maybe some butternuts or something. So mass crops very high in fat, so it just gives them energy, but very still low in protein. So they're still going to be feeding on foliage. And then in the late summer and the fall, like a lot of us, they look forward to apples. And so they find an apple tree, or they'll be feeding on that. They especially like the sweeter apples because doesn't lead to as much sodium loss as the more acidic ones.
Are they the type of animal to like raid your garden?
If you have an apple tree.
Raspberry bushes.
On the raspberries, yeah.
Like what else would you have in the garden that came like yeah, I don't ever really hear much about them raiding gardens, and plus you'd have to have some trees nearby for them to escape your dog. Okay. So where are we? So one second here. So porcupines, there's a saying that with the arrival of spring, love is in the air. And maybe that works for like bees and birds, but not so much for porcupines. Porcupine reproduction doesn't occur until like late fall, around November. And so there's a very narrow window of opportunity for them to reproduce. Female porcupines don't come into estrus for only a period of about 8 to 12 hours. Very narrow window. So a few days before they enter pre-estrus, and a membrane that is covering their vaginal opening dissolves, and a thick mucus is excreted. So that mucus, and along with her urine, is going to advertise her reproductive availability or status. So males are going to follow those odor plumes and locate the female. And there may be like several that, you know, find a female. Like with most animals during reproduction, the larger, more dominant, older males tend to have the most reproductive success. There might be some fighting, but usually the dominant male is the one that's going to end up, you know, staying with the female. So just because the dominant male has maybe deterred his the other suitors, doesn't mean that she's quite ready for him. So he's going to spend a few days trying to get closer to her and assess when she's coming into estrus. If she's not ready, she's going to let him know it. And so as he moves closer to her, she'll try to block him. She might swat at him with that tail. And she's also going to make this noise. I'm not ready for you. Bother me, I'll let you know. It's an unforgettable sound. So when you hear if you're out, you know, at night and you hear this sound in the woods, you've got a pretty good idea of what's going on. But nonetheless, he persists. And so he's still trying to come a little closer to her.
Have you heard that sound yourself?
Yep, in our side yard. I'll never forget the first time I heard that. And it was like 30 some odd years ago. And I was like, what the heck? That is so cool. What is that? And then the naturalist wondering, what is that? What's it doing? Why is it making that sound? But after a certain amount of time, as he's assessing that she's becoming a little bit more tolerant, he's going to make his final move. And he's going to get as close to her as he can. And he's going to stand erect on a branch. And essentially, he's going to become a urine cannon. And he's going to be spraying her with these high pressure jets of urine and soaking her. Not quite the same as a box of chocolates, maybe you know, a bouquet of flowers, but seems to work for porcupines. So when she finally enters estrus, they will descend from the tree and begin mating. So that leads us to the age-old question: how do porcupines mate? What's the answer? Very carefully. Very good. All right, very carefully. So he will approach her from behind. She will generally raise her tail up and over her back, kind of push it off to the side a little bit, and then he'll mount her. So copulation is anywhere from like 1 to 5 minutes, and it can be repeated several times over that 8 to 12 window. So mating ends when one or the other of them says, "Okay, I'm done," and climbs a tree and begins screaming. And I can't tell you whether it's the females or the males that are doing it more. That's an unanswered question. So now we're getting near the off factor. So porcupines, if they're pregnant, they're either pregnant or lactating for about 211 months out of the year. Very long period. Their gestation period is what is it? Let me double check this. I'm sorry. I don't want to give you the wrong number here. Gestation period is 210 days. So that's all winter long, while the female porcupines are subsisting on that like almost starvation diet. They've got this fetus developing, but for the most of the winter it's developing very slowly. But with that rich spring diet, the last month, usually about April or May, that fetus is all of a sudden going to rapidly increase in size and development. When she's ready to give birth, she's on the ground. And so here's the question: don't you think that might be a little uncomfortable to give birth to a baby porcupine? Well, they do well.
I don't know.
When the mother's giving birth, the baby is emerges wrapped in a caul, kind of like puppies and kittens. So she will lick that caul off of that amniotic sac there, and she'll eat it, which is going to give her protein and vitamins, but also odor cube predators won't be able to locate the baby quite as easily.
How many pups?
What's that?
How many pups?
I'm sorry.
How many babies?
Oh, thank you. Good question. Got my husband's ear popping lately. So, they give birth to one porcupine. Rarely two. So when the babies are born, they're precocial. They have they're fully furred. They have quills that harden in about an hour. Their little incisors have erupted, and they have some instinctive behaviors. Their little tails, actually, they weigh about 1 pound, and they weigh about 1 pound and can fit in the palm of your hand. I've never put one in the palm of my hand. I've observed it very closely. And so their little tails are about the size of my pinky. And some of these instinctive behaviors, they know to turn their face away, try to hide their face, and that little tail will flick back and forth. Like I can take care of myself, not really, but they're making a brave effort. So for about the first 6, so the mother's going to nurse them. And so for about the first 6 weeks, they can move around a little bit, but she installs them in a shelter because they can't travel really far and they can't climb up and down the trees that she can climb. Maybe after about a week or 2, they can maybe climb up a little sapling, but they can't climb up the big trees that the mom is in. So she'll install the baby in like a shelter, maybe the cavity at the base of a tree, maybe some tree slash or underneath a limb. And so while she's feeding at night she'll at the start of dusk, she'll come down to nurse the baby. And but during the day when she's in a resting tree, then the baby is down, in a shelter real close to her. It's described as a musical affair. Both the mom and the baby kind of make noises when they're nursing. So there's a long period of lactation for young porcupines. And so it's almost 100 on average, 127 days. So they're after about the first few days or something, they're learning to forage on, some trees around vegetation, but that lactation and learning to feed on foliage and stuff, they're going to enter winter in like the best possible condition. So lactation stops at about right before mating season starts in like maybe late November, and it's kind of indirect. The baby will be calling the mom at night, and as they became a juvenile and it was exploring around more, distance was increasing a little bit between where the mom is and where the babies are, but she can still always locate them. But at some point right before, as she enters pre-estrus, when the baby is giving its nursing call, she's not going to respond, and so then it's going to have to become an independent young porcupine, and hopefully, she's taught him a lot of lessons along the way, but he'll have to come independent and figure out things, Porcupine dispersal is kind of different too, a little bit from many other animals. We think of some animals like deer, and think of some other ones, but the young females are the ones that have to disperse from their mom's natal territory. Maybe this kind of helps prevent some or reduce inbreeding with their brothers and maybe father. There's lessens competition for like the scarce resources of feeding trees and shelters and dens, and allows her to find an empty habitat that she can use. So what's the advantages for the males? Well, they have a longer period of learning to locate shelters and dens and particular foraging trees and vegetation. Not going to be interbreeding with their sisters. Reduces competition from other maybe territorial males. if he was dispersing. And so the question is, okay, why is he gonna breed with his mother? And so remember, we were saying before, it's usually the older, larger, dominant males that have the most breeding success. So that kind of reduces the chance of male offspring breeding with their mothers. So
What is the territory for porcupine?
Well, in the winter time, it might be like it's very reduced because of travel, traveling through the substrate, the snowpack and stuff. And expand, I'm trying, I apologize right now off the top of my porcupine head. I'll have to look at
That's
it.
funny. Do they need 5 acres, 2 acres, 15 acres?
Well, yeah, several acres, definitely. Of course, males are going to occupy a larger territory. Females are more defensive in their territories because they're not as large. But yeah, I'll have to look at it for you. It's somewhere in my brain, but one thing I've learned that, you can only fit so much in, and then a few things start to drop out. And right now, that's one of the things that dropped out. So what factors affect their life expectancy? On average, porcupines live about maybe 5 to 6 years, but they can live up to 15 years. If everything goes well. So some of the factors that might influence their longevity would be, of course, natural predators, and a limiting factor is humans, whether it's automobiles or just irate homeowners. Let's see. Some of the predators would include like fishers and marten, bobcats, let's see, great horned owls. But again, predator density is gonna, influence that. And then the other issue is if they are living longer, that their molars are wearing down, so they're not utilizing their food resources as efficiently. And for an animal that spends a lot of time in trees, they fall out of trees a lot. So sometimes, it might just be an injury that they can recover from, but it might impair their, ability to forage or to escape predators. So what I had hoped to do today was to take a walk out in the woods here at Rice Creek. And we would go and we would maybe be able to locate a den. The snowpack seems to be mostly gone here, but to the best of my knowledge, Rice Creek doesn't have a porcupine population. So I checked with staff, I checked with the wildlife professors, I checked with students and other people in the area. And so unfortunately, we're not going to be able to take a walk outside and maybe walk to a porcupine den. So I thought if we can't do that, we'll take a virtual walk through the woods.
Are there porcupines on this property? Oh, you don't know?
From what everybody has told me, in my years of coming down here, now this is not my backyard. So but from everything that I could wandering around here myself, talking to, as I said, the wildlife biologists and professors, and zoology students, and the staff like Tim and Linda, who, lead naturalist program. And I'm not positive why Rice Creek doesn't have more of a porcupine population. In my experience, and again, I'm just one person, but I tend to find them more in more mature woodlands. Whether that's a factor, I'm not sure. So another question still to be solved. Okay, so one of the best times to go and look for porcupines and is during the winter time. Now, you don't want the 14 foot of snow pack. But if the snowpack's not too deep and too heavy, it's a good time to get out in the woods and wander about and look for porcupine. So we'll have been wandering around and say this conifer forest, and I think this was a mixed one too. And we look up ahead and we see, well, there's a lot of green foliage down on the ground. Well, had a lot of winds this year, so maybe it's due to winds, right? So, but when we look around, we don't see a lot of the other conifer trees that have quite so much foliage on the ground. So we're gonna go a little closer. We're gonna pick up one of those branches or twigs. And when we notice is that it's got this 45-degree angle cut. If you run your finger on it or look, you can see like the tooth marks that created that cut. Snowshoe hare is very, very fine, even cut, Deer leave a very raggedy edge too, because they don't have any teeth on top. So this says, oh, porcupine did this. Okay, we get a little closer and wow, there's other stuff on the ground. What the heck is that? And okay, we get a little closer and oh, guess what? One of my favorite things. Yeah. So porcupine scat, I say, to me, it reminds me a little bit of whole wheat macaroni. So it has kind of that shape to it. Different from deer. Deer, it reminds me of milk duds with maybe a little dimple or like a more elongated pellet. Snowshoe hare, think about a big M&M, kind of flattened. So okay, hey.
How big are the pellets?
Well, pass some of this stuff around. This one is. Okay. On this side, I'm going to start with deer pellets. And on this side, we'll start with porcupine pellets. And like most animals, that when with the spring, food, their scat tends to be a little bit bigger and maybe lighter color. Porcupine scat is very fibrous, has a little bit of a piney odor to it.
Good for the gardens.
See, these are, here we go. Here we have some fresh porcupine scat. We might, as we're wandering along, notice a trail through the snowpack. And this trail looks like somebody snowplowed through it. It's got this U-shaped configuration. Remember, porcupines don't have very long legs. And so when they're wandering through like a heavy snowpack, they're just snow plowing right through it. When they're going back and forth between their dens and their feeding trees, they're going to try to utilize the same trail. Just like if we maybe snowshoed, smartest snowshoer, stay at the back of the pack, because then you're walking on a pack down trail. No, maybe not that deep, but we can still see that U-shaped outline. And, oh, this one's leading to back and forth between a hole in the ground. So if the snowpack is not real heavy and maybe a little denser, and you might see this, that plantigrade, track, where they're, kind of offset a little bit from each other. And also, urine droplets in the snow. Again, that pine sol smells when I tell you, oh, pine. You get a little closer, oh, looks like there's maybe a tree that fell over, and we see, oh, somebody's been foraging and eating that that cambium, and we get closer and we can see the tooth marks from the porcupine, and we can see some dirt going in and out of the porcupine then. Oh, we still think it's the porcupine, right? Do we know for sure yet? Let's get a little closer look. And okay, so now we see some quills and we see some scat. Still doesn't tell us though that it's a porcupine in there yet. So as we're standing around kind of wondering about that, maybe we'll hear this. So that tells us somebody's home. So one of the things that I like to do, if I know that there's an active porcupine den, or maybe a feeding tree or a resting tree, it's like when you go to visit a friend, maybe you'll bring a treat over. And so usually in my pack, I have an apple or two that I'll leave at the den entrance or below the tree. And as a little thank you to the porcupine for being willing to share, its life with me. There's a lot of other things. I could talk about porcupines for a long time, but you would all leave eventually. So again, thank you very much for coming here. A good friend and mentor of mine, Dr. Robert Chambers, from ESF, his research projects were, among other things, coyotes and spruce grouse and rough grouse. And I was so excited, I told Bob that, oh, I'm going to be working on a porcupine program. And Bob just shook his head and laughed and said, only you, Pat, think that people would come for a porcupine program. So thank you so much for coming and sharing my passion for porcupines. There's some things here that's might want to just take a look at. And also, if you have any questions, I can try to answer, and if that brain cell is still in there, I'm able to answer. So,
For gardens. The porcupine can't be used for gardens, or
I'm sorry.
it's gonna be used for gardens.
Oh. I would think so, maybe. It might deter, porcupines leave a lot of their scat at den entrances.
Yeah.
And one of the things is that it might deter predators.
And it,
Because people, or predators kind of get used to that, so. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Yes, in sizes. Yeah, they're in sizes.
They are.
Yeah. Count them all. So that's what sets that limit. And parts of China. That map is.
have a good day.
You too, thank you.
I had that question too,
Okay.
and my